I don't think there's a parent out there who doesn't know about reverse psychology. Don't listen, kids. We don't want to give it away, but it's parenting 101. If you want a child to do something, tell them instead to do the opposite. And their rebellion will cause them to do what you said you didn't want them to do. It starts with toddlers, right? No, that's their favorite word. Unless you say no, and then they'll say yes, because rebellion is part of their development. What is going on there? Why is it that happens? That's what the first reading is here to teach us today. That we are hearing our earliest ancestors, our most ancient parents, also were rebels. Did not like limits. Did not want to be told no. It is in our DNA. You give us a limit, and we will rebel against it. But the story also shows us that limits are a part of God's plan. Limits are part of what God has planned for our life and our safety and our flourishing. God telling them not to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is exactly the same as a parent saying, "Sweetheart, don't touch that hot stove or you'll get burned." And yet, God saying that was enough to make them terribly curious and ripe for someone to come and tempt them into it. But just like a child who touches a hot stove is immediately going to suffer, when we do not follow and obey the limits that God puts in our life, we will suffer too. Ignoring God's limits is something we do at our own peril. I was speaking to a parishioner last week about limits, and she told me that when she became a teenager, her father sat her down and said something remarkable. He said, "Sweetheart, all of the rules that your mother and I have given you up until now are void. From now on, there's only one rule. The one rule is you can do whatever you want, as long as it could show up on the front page of the New York Times tomorrow, and your mother and I would not be embarrassed, nor would you. If what we do could show up on the front page of the New York Times and we wouldn't be embarrassed, we can do it." Isn't that a really good litmus test for whether something is moral or not? Doesn't that say it? As long as you don't need to hide it, as long as you don't need to lie about it, you can do it. That is a very good guideline for how to live a moral life with integrity. If you can let your actions be looked at in broad daylight, if they can bear the scrutiny of broad daylight, no problem. If you don't need to hide it, you can do it. Interestingly, we got to hear about a certain character in two of the readings today that we rarely hear about explicitly. Satan. Satan is the main character in two of today's stories. That's remarkable, isn't it? And of course, we get to see why one of the titles always given to Satan is the Prince of Lies, because that is always the job of evil in our life. It is to lie to us. And the best way for evil to operate is to make you think that the lie is good, that it's not so bad, that you don't really need to listen to that inner voice that tells you not to do it. And whenever we are confronted with a lie, we are given the exact same choice that Jesus had, the exact same choice that Adam and Eve had. Are we going to accept the lie that is most often comfortable? It's what we want to hear. It makes life easy. Or are we going to instead face the uncomfortable truth, the inconvenient reality, the thing that we don't want to hear? Every time we are confronted with a moral decision, those are the choices. Get cozy with the lie or confront the truth. The hardest ones of all are the ones that we desperately want to be true. The ones that say, it's not my fault, I didn't do it, it's not up to me. The ones that say, I'm not really cheating exactly. This isn't really cheating. The ones that say, I actually have this coming to me. I'm just evening things out. I got wronged earlier, so for me to do this now just kind of levels things. That's all. The ones that say, I know that normally this isn't true, but in this case, the end does justify the means. Just this one time. Those are the hardest because we want them to be true. If they were true, everything could be easy. It would all unfold just right. We wouldn't have to confront anything. But we know deep down. People often ask me about this story in particular. Is the story of Adam and Eve true? Is this a true story? Sometimes they'll say, this original sin thing, does the church still teach that? Is that real? And I think we can look at our own lives for the answer. Is this true? Ask yourself. Have I ever believed in something that I knew wasn't right, but I wanted to believe it, so I acted as if it were true? Have I ever made a choice to do something when my conscience was saying, don't do it, but I did it anyway? Have I ever stayed in a situation or a relationship or some kind of scenario in my life long after I knew I was supposed to get out of it? Was I comfortable, so I said, I shouldn't be here, but it's okay? Have I ever ignored what I knew was true because it was hard so that I could just accept what was comfortable and easy and just go with it? Is the story of Adam and Eve true? Of course it's true. Look at our lives. Of course it's true. It explains so much. And it does it in exactly the way that the Bible always communicates truth. By putting the Word of God in human words, in a story that we can understand, so that this truth can be revealed to us in a way that we can digest. If we make the choice that Jesus made, the uncomfortable one, it's going to be challenging for us. So this first week of Lent, we are being offered an opportunity to try to figure out, how are we going to respond to the challenge of the comfortable lie? How funny is it that Jesus has been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, and then the devil comes up with the bright idea of having something to eat. Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That would be interesting. Yeah, don't you want something to eat? Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. Thanks, devil. Yeah, I want something to eat, but that's not what I'm here for, he says. I'm here for a deeper purpose. So all of us are given that same opportunity. Adam and Eve were given an opportunity with the same, and of course what they said was, well, what could it hurt? It's easy, it's comfortable, it's right here. Let's just do this. It's not a big deal. If we go on that journey with Jesus like he was in the desert, we're going to be lonely at times, because the truth has many enemies.